Hi everyone. I'm going to try something new in this video, commentating on one of my wheelchair outings. I think I want to start by saying that we had snowfall overnight and it was 41 Fahrenheit or roughly 6 Celsius when I was out for this particular day. So what I use when it's that cold outside is 2 pair of jogging pants, and then I put on a t-shirt, a long sleeve shirt, and then my winter jacket. I have a lap gan that roughly goes from my waist down to just above my shoes, and I wear 2 pair of socks and then a winter hat. And this does keep me warm enough to be outside and handle for about 90 minutes or so. The key is that if I don't have the extra layers on, simply sitting outside has me cool down in between 10 and 15 minutes. And it's just way too quick, and I really don't get a chance to enjoy being outside. Right now, Ontario, Canada is in a lockdown. In just simple terms, the reason is that the hospitals are so full that routine surgeries like a hip replacement can't be performed because the hospital protocols for having these surgeries aren't in place. And I know there's some controversy about the rest of it, but that's what I thought I'd focus on in a quick summary statement. Where I went in this drive is up to my local Home Depot. There's a few things that I needed to pick up. I did a buy online curbside pickup. What I'm mostly picking up are some junction boxes and concrete screws. I spent a lot of time last summer working on my yard drainage, and curiosity has got the best of me. I'm interested in setting up closed circuit TV so I can see the yard drainage, as it happens or as it's working. I'm kind of getting curious about, the math that I did and the technical points. So it's about 150 Canadian to set up, a camera and then the Ethernet wire and electricity for the camera. So that's one of the things I'm going to work on during these next few weeks. What I'm taking are back streets. So in the city where I live, there's kind of a north-south, east-west grid. And then there's a whole bunch of side streets and neighborhoods. And I know my way around so that I'm able to get onto the side streets and not be around as little traffic as possible. I think that's the best way of saying it. It gets me out of the house and helps keep me safe. There are beginning to be bike lanes in town. Whenever there's a bike lane, I use it with my wheelchair. I can't tolerate riding on the sidewalk because of the breaks between each sidewalk block put a little bit of a bounce in my wheelchair, and it's just too much for what's wrong inside my legs. I really did need to get out when I was taking this outing. It had been several days since I'd been out last, and I was needing just to get out into the fresh air. It's one of the reasons why I learned how to fly a drone last summer. Again, it gets me outside, but I'm focused on the drone and not really what's wrong with my legs. So sometimes I'll go down to the water's edge. That's only about 5 minutes from my home. But I had a very practical need to get up to Home Depot to get the items that I purchased today. You know, these outings do help me quite a lot. And it's a very honest statement. I have friends in town that are happy to do things for me. Like when you shop online, you can often specify someone else to do the pickup, or you can pay for delivery. Whenever it's practical and possible, I prefer to do it myself just because it helps break up the monotony of being in the house for so long. In fact, speaking of that, I've started using internet games again to spend time with people. I realize that COVID's not going away anytime soon, and the interaction with people is incredibly important. So I've been playing a racing car game before I go to bed, and the servers that you connect to while playing the racing car game, most of them have a designated Discord channel, and that lets you talk to the other people that are on the server, and it's a way of having people in your life and building friendships when you're not able to get out because of COVID. And it's working pretty good, I might add. So I wanted to mention this as a possibility for people who are simply unable to get out. It may take a bit of learning to get used to. I have found that the people I play these games with are happy to teach me and help the skills for playing the game improve. Like about a week and a half ago, one of them got a new wheel for playing the racing car game, and he asked me if I'd like to have his old wheel. I thought about it for a few days and said yes, so he mailed it to me. Yesterday, I needed the practice on just getting used to it. I really wasn't making any progress in the game, and it's a racing car game that you're designed to hit other players, so I wasn't even having the game last more than like 45 seconds, so the fun had come out of it. So I spent a few hours yesterday afternoon just practicing and learning how to control and master the controller. Where I just drove by in the video is the public works yard. It's turned out well for me in where I live in proximity to this. You can see that it's about an 8-minute drive with my wheelchair to get there. And I have a wheelchair-sized or mobility-sized trailer that I can pull behind the wheelchair for getting rid of old electronics or bringing a bag of leaves over there, and just generally being able to do for myself. And it works pretty good, I might add. I do tend to wear a mask out of respect to the other employees that are working there since the wheelchair isn't closed in. And then, of course, for the bigger items, I need someone to take it with a vehicle. But I kind of enjoy doing what I can for myself and then having others help me with what's not practical or what's just too hard for me. Where we're on right now is one of the streets that was all decorated for Christmas. This one and the one that I'm going to cross over in about 3 minutes. I actually went out on December 26th and spent about an hour and a half taking pictures of all the yard decorations that these folks had set up in their yards. What I did, and I think it's worth mentioning for those that are wheelchair users, is I went out just as the sun was setting so that the outdoor temperature hadn't had a chance to cool down yet. And I drove my wheelchair to the farthest point to where I wanted to go. And then I enjoyed the Christmas lights and took pictures of them as I was traveling back to my home. It still took a lot of time to get back home, but I arrived home before I had cooled down. I understand that this may not be practical for you and you'd want to get out, and have someone drive you out. I even remember when I had 3 of my operations in 2007, 2008, and 2009, the family that took care of me in Ottawa took me out a few times to see the leaves and to see the Tulip Festival and just be able to get out of their house for a bit. And it did help sort of break up the monotony of the healing. At that point, everything was making me extremely tired, and it was just easily to get worn down from, between the healing taking place and that you've had surgery and just what surgery takes to go through. I wanted to point out that the crosswalk signals are at a height that's compatible with a wheelchair. I know you can't see me push the button when crossing the street, but I did want you to know that they're easy to reach when you're in a wheelchair. And I've seen children use them, so it should help you know that if you want to get out, you can make use of the crosswalks. By the time I was able to get out and had enough rest, it was the afternoon, but you can see the remnants of the snow that we had that morning. It was kind of the one-off snow in late April. And I don't know about you, but I kind of enjoy getting out and getting rained on or snowed on a few times each year. It helps make life a little bit more normal when going about life with a wheelchair, and that's your mobility. Where we're at right now, the city repaved the road, and the ride is so much better than the constant cracks that happen or were happening in this stretch. You could tell that that pavement was going to happen, and how I could tell is there were all kinds of health and safety signs posted in this neighborhood. For example, look out for overhead wiring was posted about every 5 meters. And then you could also see that the street had been marked with spray paint for the underground utility locates that had to happen, like telephone, sewer, water, natural gas. So you could see that something was going to be happening. And if you're in a community that this is happening on, it would be easy enough to contact Public Works and ask the date range for the construction. When I was out and saw this marking going on, I spoke to one of the employees and said I often use this for a wheelchair, and I had wondered when they were going to be doing the work just so I could avoid going out on those specific dates. And they were happy to tell me about it, and they gave me a date range. The reason it needed to be a date range is that some of the stuff must not happen when it's raining outside. So if you do get an answer from Public Works where you live, there actually is a valid reason why they're not saying a specific date, but including sort of the backup plan for the workers in the event of adverse weather. I did want to talk a few minutes about safety while out with your wheelchair. You've seen the odd car driving past me. When it's dark or dusk, what I normally will do is pull into a driveway and wait for whatever car I hear is going to be driving by me, and take the extra minute for it to get past me so I'm not in its way. There are a lot of options that you could do. I have reflective tape on the back of my wheelchair, and the reflective tape is for car headlights to reflect off of my wheelchair to help me be seen. And of course, the reflective tape doesn't depend on a battery, so it's always going to be there as a last resort. There are all kinds of options that you could add to your wheelchair for lights. What I would suggest you do is go to where bike parts and accessories are sold and find a light that would work for you or a group of lights. The benefit of these is going to be making sure you're seen from behind, the sides, and in front of you. There's lots of ways to attach these to your wheelchair. So the reason I brought up bikes is the round tubing that makes up a bike. There's some of it around your wheelchair that you could clamp a light onto. So I'd suggest you look at the arm rests on either side so that there's lights sort of marking the space that you're using as cars drive past you. And then for behind your seat, what you could do is buy some industrial Velcro, and one option would be using a drone light. Like for drone operators, they have to have a light on their drone for flying at dusk and after dark. So drone lights that are set on a strobe feature work really well in alerting traffic to you. And that is one option that could be applied to a wheelchair. Another one would be finding like a light bar that's battery powered and could either be bolted to the back of your wheelchair or glued or taped on. And for the most part, the seat cover of your wheelchair could come off. Like it's just fabric that's normally held in place with Velcro. And you could take that off and have some pan-headed screws put on to bolt a light back on there, and choose a light that recharges using a USB cable. And specifically, if you find a light that has a strobe feature, the batteries last a whole lot longer when the light's flashing on and flashing off. So it would give you the time that you need to get out and, for example, go to the drugstore or go pick up some groceries and be seen in a parking lot, or be seen if you're just wanting to get out in the evening to have a 5 or 10 minute drive with your wheelchair around the neighborhood where you would live. So where I'm at right now is on the pedestrian pathway that leads to the street across from my local Home Depot. And there's usually some Canadian geese around here, especially in the spring. To the right of me is a flood zone that's to keep the other stores and area safe. And then what I normally do is duck into the parking lot just so that the ride is so much smoother for me, so I don't have to take the sidewalk across this particular bit that I'm driving on. So you'll see here I've been out for roughly 22 minutes, and I was still warm when I was out shopping and going to pick up my online purchase. The layers really worked well. When I was at the Home Depot, the store employees proactively offered me to go underneath their awning just to get out of the wind while I was waiting for them to go inside the store and pick up my purchase. And it really did make a big difference. Because I wasn't like in the parking lot, it's wide open, and so the breeze was getting me from all sides. So it really did make a big difference to me. What I want to do for the second half of this video is share my goals that I'm working towards for 2021. If you want to, you could consider just putting on music if this isn't something that interests you. So one of them I've already touched on, and that is setting up closed circuit TV on the yard drain. I've actually made an honest mistake. The camera that I purchased is made for an app. It's not an IP camera, meaning that I can't capture the video stream coming off of it. Instead, have to watch it for an app. So I'm going to use the camera that I initially purchased for the plan that I initially had. I own the house that I live in. About 4 weeks ago, I thought that I heard my sump pump in the basement come on and not shut off. So for those of you who don't know, a sump pump sucks water out of a basement or out of a hole in the basement so that the basement doesn't flood during periods of excessive or heavy rain. Mine hadn't been on for the better part of a year, and I thought that I needed to go check on it. It's not easy to do. I can do it, but then need several hours of rest afterwards. And sure enough, what I was hearing was correct, that the sub pump had come on and did not shut off again. So I wanted to have CCTV to check on it without the physical travel into the basement. So I'm going to set up the camera that I bought for this, and I'll have to order what's known as an IP camera for the streaming for the yard drain. That project, it's probably 6 hours of work, and the vast majority of it is involved in the 12-volt power line and the Ethernet connections. That is where the internet plugs into, or your home network plugs into the camera. Another thing that I'm working on this summer is getting my yard graded and then grassing it. So this is the leftover from last year dealing with the yard drain. The yard drain project is mostly completed, but the backyard needs to be graded. There's still a small pile of mud that needs to be leveled out and filled in the low spots in my backyard to make the water naturally flow away from the house and towards the rear of my property where the yard drainage is set up. This is something that I can't do myself. There are some people willing to help me, and I'm going to need to ask more people to get involved. I had an intruder about a week and a half ago in my shed, and I had asked to do the yard drainage is appropriate in helping me clean up the shed. Like, the intruder tipped over all the shelves that had my tools on them, and there's quite the mess right now waiting for cleaning up. So if I have him helping clean the shed up, he can't be doing the yard at the same time. So I'm going to get some others to do the yard work, 'cause it's that would be appropriate. There's probably about 4 hours work in leveling the backyard. When I have someone here helping me, I try as often as is possible to be out there with them, except if I'm getting them food or drinks, or if I'm going to the store to buy a box of granola bars, for example. So I'm going to be spending some time outside with them. At Christmas, I sold the drone that I flew last summer. There were a few reasons why I did this. Partly, that drone was only made to fly about 500 hours, and I used up roughly half of its service life, and thought it would be better off, because of how frequently I fly, to let someone else use it and have it last for a few seasons. So on the 24th, someone messaged me and asked a little bit about what was going on. The dad wanted it for him and his son to have the same model drone and to be able to fly them together. So I sold it to him, and I do have a more powerful one here. So the question is if I'm able to control it in my yard. If not, then I'll need to get a less powerful model just to be flying in my yard. The idea is that it gets me out of the house for, sort of between 10 and 15 minutes, maybe twice a day on some days, and I get to enjoy the outside. I have more powerful drones here that I use with my drone license. Here in Canada, you have to take an exam if you want to fly the heavier ones. The rules are reasonable. It just takes some studying and knowing how to be safe and sharing the airspace with planes. So that's one of the things I'm trying to do this summer. I had wanted to get out more with flying the one that needs the license that I studied for, but it seems like COVID-19's kind of kiboshed that plan. So it seems like I'm going to be waiting until 2022 to really benefit from it. But so be it. I can still fly around my yard and at least get outside. And that was the main point in this. In terms of chores, I do need to finish off the cleaning and organizing of my home. I'm concerned about my legs. My knees are impacting me quite a lot now, and it's obvious that things have moved on, and I need to be able to stay in sync and have reasonable expectations of what I can do. The idea with all this cleaning is that it's if I have someone here and I'm paying them to clean, they aren't dusting things that I'm not using and aren't part of my life. The other big thing that I'd like to tackle this summer is the shed renovations into an office. And of course, the intruder that tipped over all my tools just upended that plan completely. And I'm going to have to be there when it's cleaned out. I can't just say, here, have at it. So I'm going to have to spend some time going through my tools. I was planning on doing this, but having them start with being on the shelf would have been ideal. So I'm going to need to organize my tools again and then address the insulation, the drywall, and the stuff that goes with making a space suitable for use year round. One of my friends has offered to loan me a powerful heater if I don't get this all done this summer. I could use it to get the insulation in the walls in the attic, and it would give some extra time, and that may be necessary. The other challenge that's going to be happening will be that'll get too hot to work in the day, and I'll have to be out there during the evening. My original plan had been to start it in April and get air conditioning set up as fast as practical, and then it would keep the space cool and suitable for use during the 3 or 4 weeks that are really hot each summer in Canada. Doesn't seem like that's going to be practical now. Anyway, so I'm going to have to figure out how I'm going to manage my projects for this year. But overall, that's what I've got, or that's what I'm aiming for anyways, for this summer. And then I'm going to need to hire someone to start cleaning for me. I just can't keep on top of it. It's too physically hard for me. So I'm kind of trying to get the house in a state where someone could then maintain it. That's kind of what I'm thinking of. In practical terms, it kind of means doing an hour towards it every other day. But on the days when my body does strictly need to rest, then that's much more of a priority. And of course, this kind of goes with interspersing when help's available, that I am able to take advantage of it, and sort of on days when help's here, that I'm with them, and whatever they're here for is most important in that moment. There is one other thing that I haven't talked on or touched on. Someone that I'm close to has cancer, and the cancer treatment hasn't worked. And the person has decided on not pursuing the more aggressive or radical treatments. So I'm trying to spend time playing Scrabble twice a week with this person, and sort of like Monday or Tuesday, and then either Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday, as well as having a day between the last game. So if we played on Tuesday, it'd either be Thursday or Friday, or if we played on a Monday, then it would be Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday. And I enjoy it. Playing Scrabble, with the internet, it naturally presents an opportunity to chat between moves, and the game sort of facilitates the visiting, if I can say it like that. So I'm enjoying it besides the practical need of supporting the person during what is their twilight years. And for what it's worth, it's something that I would suggest you at least consider. It doesn't have to be Scrabble if that's not your thing. There's all kinds of games on the internet, both ones like the racing car game that I often play before going to bed at night with, or quieter games that are more board games that have been adapted for the internet. And these do tend to work out okay. I would like to share again something I said in the video when I specifically talked about playing the racing car game, and that is you don't give out your name and address at an unnatural point in the friendship, and that you don't set yourself up to be taken advantage of, and start giving out money willy-nilly, but to use the internet safely. That's what I'm trying to get at. I would encourage you to think about what it is that your body needs, and then wants, and then preferences. I've spent an awful lot of time over several years thinking about what's the biggest priority, what needs my attention, and it's not always what I'm wanting to have happen. But on the other hand, it does seem to be necessary so that I don't just sort of waste my life. I know it takes an awful lot to adjust to life and staying ahead of what's wrong and still trying to have some semblance of a life happening. I've used the internet with my family and friends, and for example, video conferencing lets you see your friends without the physical travel involved, and so it's not near as taxing on your body. You do need to couple that, however, with what you need and what you're able to reasonably do. Like if I took a trip right now, it would involve having probably 3 or 4 days to physically recover. So I need to plan when I want to be spending time sort of in a recovery mode, and if the travel's worth it, versus using video conferencing or using a phone call to stay in touch with people. And it takes a bit of trial and error, but if you work at it, your friendship will sort of dictate what's practical. I would like to give you one piece of suggestion, though. For the people that are part of your day-to-day life, for the people that you go to for support, and for the people that are really part and really know what's going on in your life and you don't put up a lot of walls around them, the phone or video chatting using like Facebook Messenger or video conferencing on Instagram really becomes crucial. And you may not always physically be together, but for someone that's going to be really involved in your life, you kind of have to think some about where they're at with theirs and what's going to be best. And then it all depends on their lifestyle and their availability. When I've asked people to help me, I try to gauge and find out what I can count on, so I don't ask someone to do sort of what's too hard and have the idea help spread out among several people. And it does work out well, although it has come with trial and error. Some of them haven't been the best comfortable conversations, but they're better had than not had, if you grasp what I'm saying. So where I'm at right now in this travel in the video is about 10 more minutes to getting back to my home, or 8 more minutes getting back to my home. I've just drove past the public works yard, and where I'm coming up to is a really busy intersection that doesn't have a pedestrian crossing. And it takes a lot of looking left and looking right. The truck that just drove past me, I had waved in front of me. And the reason I did that was for clear communication of when I'd pull out and the truck would pull out. A lot of the time I make eye contact as much as possible with vehicles that are using the road, and we're at the same intersection. A lot of the time people will wave me on, but it doesn't always happen. I do tend to notice that when I have lights on the wheelchair and they're turned on, people treat me as a vehicle, and the right of way applies of who's going to cross the street first. Otherwise, I tend to be treated as a pedestrian and sort of gesturing to someone, pointing a finger at where I'm planning on going, or if I want them to go first, works out well. I'm kind of running out of things to talk about, to be honest. So there's just a few more minutes that are going to play until I'm back at my home. And I think I'm just going to let the video play through for those who are still watching. I don't know how this would have worked for everyone. I don't often post videos that are 40 some minutes long. If this has been helpful to you, please let me know. I often post videos that are just a few minutes long, but with the COVID lockdown, I wanted to give those people an opportunity to at least see the outside while being safe inside for your own morale, and to help you keep pressing forward in life and sort of not feeling withdrawn or going into a shell. I do hope everyone's doing well, or as best as possible anyways. Thanks so much for this time that you spent with me today. Bye for now.